Right, so welcome back everyone. So I will continue with this article. I just need to get it back on the screen. So I need to read off it. So yeah, so here we go. So yeah, so if you're following this channel, we're up to point 7 of the VK article, which is taken from Russian Cosmopolitan magazine. So let me just check on something. All right, sorry about that. I needed to just line up the point 7. So yeah, so there's, as usual, there's a couple of points. So what's really relevant to this? What's really relevant to this is significant points in it end with the saying, but only Russian men understand this. Russian men are fine with this, but only Russian men. So therein lies your paradox. People, you have a entrenched cultural norm, a particular way you act and react in your culture. Then you seek to date outside of your culture because you don't like the men in your culture. But according to this, the only ones that will actually be fine with your traditional normal behavior is a Russian man, but you don't want to date them. And then you have trouble with someone who isn't Russian. So what's got to change in this? You would just go to, you have to change in this. If you want to actually try to engage in a long-term relationship or marriage with someone outside of your culture, but only men in your culture are okay with your traditional behavior, expect trouble, expect it, and expect it to be huge. So the paradox you've created for yourself is what you've created. You've gone, Russian men really annoy me because they are this. But according to this article, they're the only ones that actually are able to understand you and are able to tolerate your cultural norm. So it's really something to think about. I mean, I know the West sells itself as some amazing utopia where you get everything you want and things are easier and things are this and things are, but they're not. They're just simply not. Having been to a Slavic country, I can tell you it is leagues ahead of anywhere in the West in terms of services provided by the government, just the politeness of the people, the lack of aggression. It's the country I was in was just, that was a utopia to me. So it's like the saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. So maybe if I lived in that country, people were saying, oh, it's different being a tourist to living there. Of course it is. But why is the sayings that are laundered towards me and people that would want to move there, why is it that way, but it's somehow not that way for you, that you just read brochures or have that one friend who moved to America or Australia or England and, oh, they are doing well. Well, I can tell you, I know at least 2 Russian families that have lived here for decades have packed up and gone back to Russia. Why? Because there's a cost of living crisis here, because things are not as easy. They were. Back in the day, this country was a utopia, no doubt about it. Things are changing all around the world. France is finding it hard, just people getting housing, etc. So on the point 7, a Russian woman is capable of sacrifice and compassion equals a Russian woman is prone to codependency and masochism. My experience is not that case. Not at all. So let's read what it says. Yes, a Russian woman will never leave an alcoholic, a slacker, a domestic tyrant, or even a madman. Okay, this is dated. This is way dated. Okay, we're talking, this could be 20 years old if it was mid 2010s or mid 2000s, say. Let's be kind and say it was 2010. So it's 15 years old at least. Okay, so that statement is not applicable. Not applicable. They leave. Trust me, they leave. I've heard so many stories of them leaving. So, and why they see that as a reason not to marry a Russian woman, you think you would. You'll go, well, amazing. I'll find a woman that puts up with my issues. That would make you want to marry a Russian woman, not make you not want to marry her. She will carry her cross. Without her, he'd be lost. Most of these crusaders don't even realize that psychologists worldwide have long called this codependency. The more dubious the man, the easier it is to seem like the perfect woman beside him. Now I had to spend a little time thinking about this, so I took it this way. You could meet this man, he might drink a little, or he might put on, I don't think Russian people particularly pretend they're someone they're not. They're not the way Western people are. So although I've heard other stuff, I've heard things to the contrary, that certain people might have been nice to someone while they were there, and then when they left, they made a decision they wouldn't continue the relationship, or something happened or whatever. But that's when the studying of attachment style is very, very handy and answers a lot of the questions that no one else can answer. So the Russian woman revel in these unhealthy relationships for decades instead of living their own lives. So the Russian woman doesn't save the dependent man. She drowns him in his dependence, tending and nurturing someone else's problems. Husbands of such wives will never stop being alcoholics or unemployed, because in that state, they're the only kind their beloved needs. It took me a while to comprehend what this was trying to say. It's saying this. It's saying some Russian women thrive on the fact they find a man that needs them rather than the other way around. So that's the masochism, right? They actually revel in pain. They enjoy difficult situations. They embrace the difficult situations, and it's not stoicism, it's something else. So what they're saying is, if your husband became a drunk and lazy and you didn't object to it, and you said, oh, my poor beloved needs me, oh, you stay on the couch with your vodka and I'll go to work. And so the women embrace it, because the women possibly could be insecure. They might just not think they'll get a man. So they'll grab this guy that shows them some attraction and latch on and go, I've got myself the guy. And then wind back to like points 1 and 2, like where then they're esteemed in society. It's not that they're not the single woman. They have a man. So their status in society is elevated. and it doesn't matter what that man is as long as it's a man. So I know someone who was in a long-term relationship with someone, and they had intimacy issues. So the woman more than likely was sexually abused by her prior husband. So she had trouble sharing a bed with this guy. This guy's vision of what a relationship of a husband and wife was to share a bed and be intimate with no issues. This woman who wanted to get married had copious, many issues, lots and lots of issues of being close, of being affectionate. They treated sex as transactional, and all they did was sit at the table and say to this poor guy, I want this, do that, I want this. The guy snapped and said, you know what, we're not getting married. I thought I might be able to work through this. The guy was an idiot. He said to me he's an idiot. He said, I thought I could be happy with the Russian wife in the house and the companionship. But then when it just got to be a burden, this woman became, and he didn't want to go home from work. He's just like, I'm going to walk through the door for a hard day at work. And this person would be like, drive me to the coast, take me here, take me there. I need this. And this poor guy's worked all day long. The woman's just sat in the room and done nothing but eat food that was in this guy's kitchen. So, and then after some study, I worked with this guy and looked at it, and she would have been dismissive, avoidant. Okay, she just had no empathy. And she was point number 7. She thought she's this proud, successful businesswoman, but she lacked a man. So the moment she could have the man as her accessory, her status was elevated. She goes, I have everything except the man. I now have the man. I treat him badly. I can't be close to him, but I have the accessory hanging off me. It's like women. I'm not going to get into who gets it worse, okay? But I'm just saying men, because they're men, are not immune to a lot of the degradation and objectification that women get, particularly in different cultures. And I can tell you from my friends' experience and other people's experience, and even this article verifies it, that when the Slavic woman has the ring on her finger, all of a sudden, congratulations, you're not that lonely girl who can't get a man. But they won't ever word it like that. They won't actually go, why doesn't she get a man? Then no one goes, maybe there's something wrong with her, just because they're very quick to blame the guy. But statistically, look at it. Like this woman, one woman would be most guys' dream woman. She was polite, courteous, affectionate, but got scared when things would get serious. There's a movie, The Runaway Bride. Go look it up. The Runaway Bride. That's what a lot of Russian women are. That is a really good way of looking at what fearful avoidant is. And we sort of normalize it or make it coffee shop talk as commitment issues. It's like, why would a woman get engaged, be at the altar and run? And not just once, but numerous times, because fearful avoidant does that. Fearful avoidant can jump. You can actually heal. You can actually transition along the line from insecure relationship attachment style into secure. It's doable. You can do it. I researched if fearful avoidants can get married. They can, but they will ask for space. They might be able to share a bed for a month or something and then all of a sudden need space. And Their partner just has to understand they need space and not take it personally that the woman doesn't love them. It's the love that actually makes the woman run. I had to explain this to a Russian woman and posted some information on the ping pong effect, and it was too much for this Russian woman. It's like, this is too much information. Those people that you know need to go see psychologists, psychiatrists. But a lot of it comes around is the Slavic people won't embrace deep psychology. They won't. Actually, I've got a friend and I'm reading the attached book to them to help them with their English. And I've gone off on tangents of people I know and some of my own experience to them, to give a real life account. And there's things that, fearful avoidant partners or the fearful avoidance can cycle back. I mean, in Russia, there's a saying, and I'm not going to try to say it in Russian because I would probably butcher it and get it wrong. There's a saying in Russian of going into oneself. The West doesn't have it. And because we generally work things out or we'll just close the door, but there's even nuanced differences in Russian words of taking a break and break up. So in the attached book, I'm pretty sure it's the attached book and not Love Languages book because I'm reading both. But one guy comes back six months later, fearful avoidant guy comes back 6 months later. When they come out of deactivation, they miss the person, they might date in the meantime, but it's nothing serious. So codependency. Okay, so I don't think the Russian woman now is prone to codependency. What Cosmopolitan would have completely left out of all of these points is attachment style. An attachment style, I could probably go back over it and label each point with what attachment style they are. This attachment style we're reading here is predominantly anxious, preoccupied. So this would be probably a woman who was neglected at childhood, didn't have her needs met. So the first guy that comes along meets her needs because the guy won't leave her, and she'll make sure the guy won't leave her because the guy will need her. Perfect example of anxious, preoccupied, right? So the woman is healing with the guy. She's probably getting the love and affection, or at least feeling complete, feeling someone needs her and pays attention to her. So meets unmet need. So this is all psychology right here. This point 7, brilliant example of an attachment style. Okay, you've got a woman who is consciously not helping a guy get better to the point he doesn't need her, and she wants this guy to need her because she gets her needs met that comes from unmet needs in childhood. Perfect example of it. So she drowns him in dependence, tending and nurturing someone else's problems. Okay? So she might want to work on herself to move into secure attachment where she's happy without needing someone in her life. There's all that stuff. There's old sayings like you need to be happy in yourself and not look for it in other people because they can take it away. Very true. But even secure people who are happy in themselves, who then bond and have a healthy relationship, will still incur trauma if something happens where they just decide not to be together. a secure couple are not immune to divorce or separation. People can grow apart, and particularly if they're secure, they're possibly more likely to leave than anxious preoccupied, because the anxious preoccupied hangs on for dear life. They might push them away if they manifest protest behavior. So I might as well keep going on this. It'll be lengthy, but let's tie everything in together, because there's only one point after this. So with so going back to trying to tie it up, that's your attachment style. So secure a 60%. Okay, so that's not a secure relationship, that one right there. That's screaming insecurity, more on the woman's side than the man's side. The man could be happy being an alcoholic or a slacker. So it's literally this is saying a Russian woman will never leave an alcoholic, a slacker, domestic tyrant. Okay, so let's look at the big picture. So this article is trying to say that this trait is a trait that would make a man not marry a Russian woman. Now, maybe I'm taking it completely wrong, but I would think if a Russian woman was willing to take a guy with all of his faults, she would be an amazing woman. She would be who you would want to marry. It says, you'll accept me for my problems and care for me and nurture me. Let's get married. Why would a guy want to go, I'm not marrying you because you just tend to my needs? That is a very, very strange thing. Maybe someone can shed some light on it and enlighten me if I'm misinterpreting that, but I am just taking that at its value, that the article is preempted. I could scroll back and read it out, and it says apparently these are annoying traits, and this is why the Russian bride's no longer glorified anymore, because this is apparently as an annoying trait. I don't see it as annoying at all. I know someone that had someone worry too much about them and then decided the relationship couldn't carry on after this person had to go somewhere for work. And then that's when he copped a lot of stuff like, what did you do? He didn't do anything, but that's fearful avoidance. So while they were together, this woman worried too much, catered to every need, felt nurtured, was healing. But then when the guy went away, they actually became overwhelmed that this couple were going to agree to a long-term relationship. And then the fearful avoidant activated. So, but they're saying in this case that that's not going to happen. They're saying they stick around, so they would be anxious, preoccupied. So we should maybe I'll do a video on labeling each attachment style to each point. But point number 7, particularly codependency, right? Codependency is a huge part of the attachment style of anxious, preoccupied. So the anxious, preoccupied obsess over their partner. They don't feel complete without the partner. They worry if they don't get a text message response. They're anxious. They're anxious because their parents would not be around for them. Not in the way that a dismissive wasn't. It's like there could be some push-pull going on, but it's more the fearful one. I'll read up a little bit more on anxious, but generally anxious is just when the parents are there, but they're not abusive, but they're just, there's no emotion, there's no love, there's no attachment, or um sorry, it is push pull. They can be all loving and caring one day and not the next. Or they might have to run off and do things. Of course, you've got intergenerational trauma, you've got learnt behavior of, if they've got anxious parents, they might just learn to be anxious. But I'm going to do a refresher for myself on anxious preoccupied, but it's generally when one parent isn't giving, yeah, it's the unmet need of when you're a child and one of your parents or both are not nurturing and loving, but not in a, there's a fine line there, right? Because it's anxious. Dismissive avoidant is when the parents aren't around, even around, but provide. So it's nuanced, but it's different. That's why they're different things. But just think of anxiety. Anxious, it's like you see like men and women just jump from guy to guy to guy. It's like they have to have a boyfriend, they have to have a girlfriend. They're incomplete without it. So this leans more towards anxious, preoccupied, because once that woman latches onto the guy, that shows some he might need her. He could be anxious, preoccupied, so it would work actually quite well. But it's an unhealthy relationship, right? Because she's keeping the guy down, so he doesn't leave. Remember, there was a famous movie where this woman captured this guy and like broke his leg so he couldn't leave, and like she was obsessed, unhealthily obsessed with this guy. I'm not saying that's what anxious, preoccupied people do, but so all of these traits come from childhood and attachment style. This is where we're tying everything in together and trying to give you the answers of why this happens. And it is attachment style, is formulating the people that act in these ways. So this is not every Russian woman, nowhere near it. The number of divorced Russian women is very high. And it's a number of reasons, but they do not any longer stick around if some guy is needy or has issues. It's a huge trigger for them the second time around. Okay, thanks for sitting through that, and I'll see you in the next one.